Welcome, my friends. Welcome to my world. I'm your host, Kevin Rutherford. Yes, we're a little late today. We had a little bit of a fight with technology this morning. I have no idea why, but we got it fixed. It is Tuesday, August 23rd. God, I can't believe August is almost over already. The summer is just flying by. We are here live. It is time for the Power Hour. Later on today, we'll be doing an episode of The Pit. We're going to open the phone lines right now. And looks like we've got the team from Pittsburgh Power here. We've got some calls coming in already. Looks like everybody's waiting for me. So I'm here. I'm just going to jump right into the Power Hour here. Bruce, looks like you're up first. Welcome back.
Well, thank you, Kevin. As always, it's our pleasure. I'm sitting here looking at a picture. Did you see the picture Lisa posted of you and I at one of the truck shows in 2013?
I didn't see that, but I did just notice something. I had a problem with the board this morning, and now I'm having a problem with your call. It's sounding okay on my end, but I've only got half a channel on the phone for some reason. Let me check with Aaron and see how it sounds.
Should I call back?
No, it's not you. It's on my end. I'm going to have to fix it. I would have to restart my phone. You know what? I think we have to do it because the last time... Well, where Aaron says it sounds okay on the stream, so we'll go with it, and we may have to fix the recording or something. We'll see what happens there. I did not see the picture. Where did she post it? On Facebook this morning?
Yeah, she put it on Facebook. One of the comments is from Nick Carter. He said, "I'm sitting here patiently waiting for the next CMC."
Yeah, I know. You know, after however many years we did that, we did the first one in 2007. So we did that for more than a decade, and it got big there at the end. Mm-hmm. It was taking us 6 months to prepare for that show.
Yeah.
That's how big it got towards the end. So when we got a break for, a year or two, it was kind of nice. But now I miss it. I wish we had something going on.
Dwayne Erkey called us a couple of studs.
What's he been smoking?
Oh, he smokes two-stroke oil from his snowmobiles.
Yeah, you got to watch that. That Klotz is good stuff. Smells good.
Anyway, I wanted to talk about turbo lag. Some people complain about turbo cars, and if your turbo's too big on your semi-truck, you have turbo lag. And yes, you can have turbo lag if you go way too large on the turbo. You kind of have to match the horsepower and the torque with the turbo and the bore and stroke and the cubic inch. But the way you get around turbo lag, especially like in a pickup truck or a car, is you just don't gouge on the throttle. When you're pushing on the throttle, you're not supposed to just mash it to the floor. Years ago in our water ski club, we had a guy, he was an office employee for our Blue Shield Blue Cross. And he would just have his wife nail the throttle on the 351 Ford in the ski boat. He had a Mastercraft, and it would bog, and he would complain about it. And his name was Bob. And I said, "Bob, that's not how you do it. You feed into the throttle. When you open the carburetor, the throttle plates, you're allowing all the vacuum to escape. There's none to suck the gasoline in. Consequently, you're getting the bog." And he just couldn't understand that, but he wasn't a mechanical person. Actually, so you know what I'm talking about because you had the same boat.
I had the exact same boat. Yeah, I told you about the
and
when Mastercraft brought out that 21 footer with the bow rider, so it opened it up, gave you a lot more seating. That was always the problem on the ski boat. You just couldn't get anybody on there. So, there were times we wanted to have more people out there with us. We bought that 21 foot bow rider, and it came with a 455. And I really didn't want that. There was a whole long story. I bought this at a boat show, and then the dealer turned out to not be a dealer, and he took my deposit. And I ended up calling the factory, and they were trying to figure it out because I had a killer deal on this boat because the guy wasn't going to sell it to me, obviously. So the factory said, look, we'll try to work with you, and, we feel bad about this. And they had their factory boats that the executives used right down there on the lake where the factory is, and they said, we've got a couple of those if you want to pick from one. And they had one that I wanted, but it had that 455. And I talked to a local dealer, and he said, look, I've been looking for one of those engines. He wanted to put the 455 in the little ski boat for a barefoot boat. So he said, if you get that from the factory at that price, he said, I'll swap engines from you straight up. No cost, no nothing. I said, all right, you can have it. Man, did that thing scream in that little boat. Once he did all the work, we went and took his out too. That thing was crazy.
Yeah, the only problem with the big blocks in the ski boats for skiing is the wake was bigger.
Yep, too much weight. And your fuel bill was a lot bigger too.
Yeah, but back to driving a car with a turbo gasoline engine. Now they're pretty responsive, but you just ease into the throttle, and you should do the same thing on a semi truck. It's not how fast you go from 0 to 60 or 65. It's how well you can stay there. And the way to beat turbo lag is to just feed into the throttle, not jump on the throttle. And that's also the way to eliminate the puff of black smoke between shifts if your ECM is set up to be responsive. People say, well, I have smoke now. I say, well, do you have smoke at 25 or 30 pound of boost pulling a hill? No, just when I shift gears. Well, when you tell me that means you're not looking at your boost gauge, and you have to train your foot to actually train your brain to only push the foot hard enough to get it to 8 pounds of boost. Because at 8 pounds of boost is when you clear up the black smoke and make it clear. Once you get to 8 pound of boost, then you can get after the throttle. But you have to be patient until you get to 8 pounds of boost. And after you look at the boost gauge for a couple of days and practice that, then it just becomes second nature. And the other thing is, if you're hard on the throttle and you're wide open and you just lift your foot, that's very, very hard on the turbocharger, and that's what wants to take the turbine wheel off the turbine shaft because it's friction welded at that point. The turbine wheel's made out of stylite, so it can run cherry red and won't deform, but the shaft is made out of a hardened steel, and they friction weld them together. Friction weld means the turbine wheel is spun on a big flywheel, and the shaft is in a lathe, and it's ground into the stylite wheel until it welds itself in there. So you do have that connection, and you can break that by constantly just lifting your foot. A four-wheeler, you're pulling them out, and a four-wheeler comes over you. First habit is to just pick your foot completely off the throttle. Try to train yourself to lift your foot, but not just completely pull it off.
Tape an egg to the bottom of your shoe.
Yep, that's driving with the egg between your foot and the throttle.
Nice
and
easy.
It makes the turbochargers live a whole lot longer.
Nice and easy. Yeah, that's for sure. What else you got?
So that's what I have.
All right. So
that's it.
I was reading.
Still lots of gear ratio. Every day, still lots of gear ratio questions. I think maybe we should start selling gears.
I know. You know what's funny is we've been talking about this for decades, and now it's more complicated now. We used to have a pretty, kind of almost one size fits all because most of the pre-emission engines were fairly comfortable in about the same RPM range. We might run the Cats down a little bit lower, the Detroits up a little bit higher, but for the most part, we could kind of cover it. Now, boy, we are all over the board with different specs. I had a call yesterday on an MX, a PACCAR product. The highest gear ratio they would go for him was a 308.
PACCAR is having a problem with that. The PACCAR engineers do not understand driving in direct, and I don't know why they don't. Apparently, they're not listening to our radio show. Did I ever tell you the very first vehicle that I was driving, and I discovered we need to be in direct more than in overdrive. Did I ever tell you what that was?
No, I don't remember that.
In 1983, around 1983, we bought a little Chevy Love pickup, a 4-cylinder Isuzu, normally aspirated.
I remember that one, yeah.
And we put a pyrometer in it. And it was a 5-speed manual. And going down Route 28 and climbing up over RIDC Park, it was a nice long pole. The pyrometer would sit at 1,500 plus degrees.
Wow.
And the reason it didn't take the aluminum pistons out, because there's not a lot of pressure inside, because there's no turbo putting boost in.
Okay.
But I noticed that if I took it out of fifth gear at 1,500 and put it in fourth gear, I'd drop down to 1250. The RPM would come up slightly, and my speed would stay about the same, but I had a whole lot more throttle response.
And a lot less heat.
And then and a lot less heat, 250 degrees less.
Yeah.
And we were in the process of rebuilding a 475 twin turbo and a 359 Pete. And the guy lived on Martha's Vineyard, but he kept the truck somewhere over around Boston. And I said to him, and I don't know if it had 390s or 411s, but back then that's what was common, with the 24.5 tall rubber.
Yep.
And I said, why don't we retire this and build this truck so you run in direct gear? And he was really concerned, and I was concerned.
Yeah.
And I did, because this was the very first one, and this was in the mid 80s, and maybe 86 or 87, or maybe late 80s. And because I think the truck was in 85 or 86. So anyway, I did my calculations, and with the tire size and to be at the 1650, 1700 on the level at 70 mile an hour, 308 was our gear. And this was a single over 13 speed. That's all we had at the time. And, there were no cell phones, and he called me a day after he picked the truck up after running his first load. He said, "Oh my God, I can't believe the difference in this truck."
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was the start of running in direct.
And instead of
just a fluke that we had.
Yeah, instead of going in that direction, the industry going in that direction with that single over 13 speed, which I thought was a great transmission, they went the opposite. They went to all double overs and lower gear ratios, and it's you and I have been talking about that for a long, long time. Think about all the fuel that's been wasted in the industry all these years, because the industry just never really focused on fuel economy at all.
Right. The engineers that design a lot of things don't get to drive them, just like the World Transmission in the motorhomes. The earlier motorhomes, when the B engine appeared, they had a 4-speed Allison. I'm trying to remember, that was back in the mid 90s. Was that direct?
Oh, I don't know.
Single over. And then they decided they had like a 343 gear. Then they decided to go to 411 or 456 gear, make the World Transmission, and make 5th and 6th gear overdrive.
Yeah.
So it's a drastic overdrive when you're in 6th gear. And I think it's like a 40% overdrive. And that was the wrong way to go.
What?
They should have made it a single over, and instead of 340 gears, went down to like a 308.
Yeah, well, it's we're talking about engines that were low on horsepower and low on torque, and when you go into overdrive, that's a torque reduction.
Right. I mean, these are 8.3 mechanical Cummins, 300 horsepower. They made 15 pounds of boost. And people were putting huge trailers with cars behind them and motorcycles and everything else, and then complaining of the power. And we would give them an extra 100 to 125. We'd take them from 300 to 400 and 4.25. And it really helped, but you had to watch that pyrometer sometimes.
Well, my first RV, the old Partridge Family bus, the one we bought from David Counts, just to get started. We knew we weren't going to keep it. I just wanted something cheap and fairly reliable, and it had that small Cummins in it and 473 gears. I mean, that was a 40-foot RV. It was a big RV for that little engine, and that's how they tried to make up for it, was just really low gears.
Mm-hmm. That's right, 473.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I had a little bit of a topic I wanted to talk to you about this morning. It kind of fits into this. You know, we've been talking about efficiency for a long time. You're going back to the 80s. You were looking at direct gears before I had even bought my first truck yet. And we talk about efficiency all the time. We have been for decades. And the industry just does not focus on it at all. They never really have. Do you know the average? Now, we have guys who are now recording, not on 30-day averages, but on certain runs and certain tanks. We have guys recording over 11 now. That's not out of the question. Mm-hmm. And those are real numbers. And 30-day averages, we know 10 is common for some of these guys now. That's a huge improvement over the years because we focused on it. The industry average is still 6.6. Isn't that awful? We were beating that 25 years ago. But that's the number still.
Yeah.
You think about how much fuel we waste.
Yeah. If you're loaded and you're leaving on a Sunday, and let's say you're going to leave at 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and you've got to go 500 or 600 miles, leave 1 hour early and just try 55, 58. Just try it. And look at the fuel mileage for that one trip. I know you can't do that all the time, and I don't drive that slow. So
no, and we
if
go ahead.
If I'm early to get somewhere, and I try to always leave everywhere to go at least 15 minutes early, and I just ease along, whether I'm in the pickup pulling the snowmobile trailer or I'm in the car. It's kind of amazing. I still get there and I'm a whole lot more relaxed.
We are getting ready to kind of start testing something. So we know the fuel savings by going slower. We're starting to put together some number on maintenance savings by going slower, and that number's bigger than we thought it was. And now we're also, because I've been working on the stress protocol, because stress is a big problem for people, and we can measure it now in real time on the watch. We're starting to work with drivers to see what the effect of speed is on stress. And it's pretty obvious. As soon as you start going faster, the stress level goes up.
Yeah.
The one thing we have noticed
I have to admit, though, I like it whenever I see a semi-truck out ahead of me and I'm running along at 75 and 80 and I don't have to pass them. Kind of like that.
Well, yeah. As long as they're paying the fuel bill, I kind of like that too. Stay up there all you want. So we're going to, the one thing we have noticed.
It makes a great front door, Kevin.
That's
right. Make a great front door, you know?
That's right. If you take a driver who's been driving fast for a long time and then you get him to drive slow, his stress level goes up initially, because he gets frustrated going slow. You got to get him over that habit of, being in a hurry and being frustrated, and then the stress levels go way down. So we're going to work on that. But I read an interesting article this morning. Oh, go ahead.
If you get used to the sound of the engine and transmission and the wind at lower speeds, then when you do increase it by just 5 miles per hour, you say, wow, I can really hear it working. Yeah,
that's a good point. All those sounds go up. Mm-hmm. The wind, the tire noise, the engine noise, everything goes up. So I follow electric vehicles and, not for the green part of it. I just think it's going to be cool to have both electric and diesel's going to be around for a long time. But what a difference in the electric vehicle world, how focused they are on efficiency. A lot of people don't even think about that. They think, well, why do you care? There's no fuel. Well, of course there's fuel. The fuel's electricity. And electricity still has a cost. Now, Tesla's claiming when their truck comes out later this year, their cost for electricity will be 2.5 times lower than the cost for diesel. Now, they're basing it on California's diesel price. So it's about the highest in the country. 2.5 times lower than California's diesel price is what they're claiming. So there's a cost, but there's another big issue here, and they are hyper-focused on range, because that's what everybody's freaked out about. I'm going to buy this electric car. It's not going to go far enough. There aren't enough chargers. So they're so focused on range, and every time you improve efficiency somewhere, you improve range. But listen to this. When I read this, I'm like, we never hyper-focused like this on efficiency. So have you seen that electric car called the Lucid?
No.
You got to go look for that thing. And look for the Lucid Air Dream Edition. This car is stunning. Big 4-door sedan, kind of going right after the big Tesla Model S. Beautiful car. They are claiming a 520-mile range on that car. That's pretty incredible. But here's what they figured out.
AC going?
Well, they never give you all the details. They don't give you the temperature range, and that will affect it. They don't give you the terrain. It's a whole lot easier to go 520 miles west or east across Kansas than it is to go 520 miles west from Denver. But they never give you all the details. So I assume they're giving me absolute best case scenario. This is, a nice 65-degree fall day. You're on a level ground. You're doing the speed limit, whatever it might be. But that's an impressive range because everybody gives you the best case. So if this is their best case, it's a big range. But here's what they were talking about, and what I mean by them being so hyper-focused on this. One of the options you have on this car are 21-inch wheels. But if you choose those 21-inch wheels, they've calculated it, you lose 39 miles off your 520 miles. That's how focused they are on these numbers. That's, you and I have been that focused, but the trucking industry should always be that focused on fuel. And we never have been. Who even talks about range on a diesel truck? But why don't we? I mean, that was always an important number for me when I spec'd bigger fuel tanks because I didn't have to worry about weight. Weight wasn't an issue for me. If I carry a couple 1,000 pounds more fuel, no big deal. It allowed me to buy more fuel when I could get it at the cheapest price, and it just allowed me to go fuel less often, which was that was a big plus for me. I hate getting fuel in a truck, but we never really talk about that. You take a truck with smaller fuel tanks getting 5 miles to the gallon, and then a truck, like the guys getting 10 miles to the gallon, put bigger fuel tanks on there. There's a huge difference in range.
Yeah, that's true.
That's true. They even.
I'm looking at the Lucid now, so the Air Dream Edition.
Isn't that thing beautiful?
It's a good-looking car.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know what else? Speaking of electric...
Who's building it?
I don't know. I think it's a brand new company.
It concerns me on brand new companies.
I know.
It's fit and finish.
Everything, yeah. Everything worries me about brand new companies. What if I buy the car and they're not here in 2 years?
That's right.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a beautiful car, and it's they went right after Tesla's big Model S with that. But the other thing that I just saw for the first time out here, now I saw some when I was back east, a couple of them, but out here over the weekend when Lisa and I were out on the road, I saw 2 Rivian pickup trucks out here. I think that's like 6 I've seen on the road now altogether. So they're out there. I haven't heard much about them.
Okay. Did you read the article an electrical engineer wrote? Said if you live in a city in a row house and 3 people are charging their car at the same time, you won't have enough electricity to run your air conditioner in your house.
I'm not surprised. There's still a lot of issues, and instead of allowing the free market to let this happen like it should, the government's forcing this. There's going to be I have a feeling this is why Tesla pushed up its time. Tesla wasn't going to put their truck out till 2023. And now they say they'll be producing that truck and selling it by the end of this year. But from what I understand, and I still have to read through the whole text of this bill, I think there's a $40,000 credit in there for an electric truck.
So let me ask you two questions. From the time you were 16 years old and the amount of traffic on your roads till now, what percentage of more vehicles do you think there are out there?
Ooh, man, it's got to be a lot.
It's high.
It's got to be a lot, yeah.
Yes. It's probably 4 times what there was when you were 16. Now, when was the last time we built a power plant in this country?
A what plant?
A power plant.
Oh, yeah, we don't. We don't build any.
When was the last time? And yet the environmentalists want to tear down dams because they don't like, for some reason, they don't like hydroelectric. I thought that would be the best.
They don't like wind either.
Yeah, they don't like wind. They don't like hydroelectric.
And they don't like nuclear. So how are they going to power all these electric vehicles?
They don't like coal.
Well, what they don't understand is all these people with electric vehicles are really driving coal-powered vehicles because they're getting like 80% of their electricity from coal.
And they don't want you to do well fracking, which is 5,000 feet down in the ground, to get the natural gas, to burn natural gas to make electricity. So,
yeah. Well,
okay.
All right. We're going to move on. We are going to hear from Leroy and Pete. Leroy, you're up first this week. What's on your mind?
So did you see the release of International's new powertrain?
I did.
The S13?
I did.
What do you think of it?
I'm fairly impressed. I think it may turn out to be one of our better engines. I like the architecture on it, what I've seen so far.
I mean, it's a 12.7, so that has it going for it, right?
Exactly. I mean, they knew what they had to meet there. 12.7 is a classic. No, I think that's going to be an interesting engine, and I hope so. I was saying the other day when I talked about this, for a long time, International was the only truck I bought. I mean, that was the first brand that I was loyal to. In the beginning, I bought whatever truck was, for sale and I could afford. And then I kind of settled on International. I had a dealer down the street that I had a good relationship with. I had a sales guy that found me used trucks when I wanted them. And I owned a lot of Internationals. I liked them. They weren't, flashy or fancy. They were just solid, good, dependable trucks. And it'd be good to have them back. It seemed they've been absent from the industry for about a decade or more. As far as I'm concerned, they haven't put out a truck or an engine worth buying.
And it seems like the A26 never really caught on.
No, it didn't.
I think they're doing a lot of interesting technology on the S13, like the removal of EGR in favor of dual SCR. I mean, right now there's really 2 main ways of reducing NOx. It's either through the use of EGR or through SCR. And I understand that getting rid of EGR, I mean, it's still there, but it's mostly just for cold start idling. And my thing is newer engines don't use that much EGR anyway, and we don't seem to have the EGR issues we had back in like 2007, 2010. Right. So I don't know if exchanging EGR for 2 SCRs, because we have issues with those all the time. Yeah. I don't know if that's the best idea.
Well,
getting rid of one problem for double of another.
Well, if you remember, when everybody else went to SCR and DEF, International went the opposite way originally. They went to enhanced EGR, and they were bringing a ton more EGR back into the engine. Their first version of that engine had 4 radiators. I think it was 3 high temp and 1 low temp, or the plumbing on that thing was a nightmare. So, they tried to go the opposite way once and it didn't work. Now they're kind of doubling down in the other direction. I don't know if it's going to work.
I mean, I do like the idea that they basically got rid of EGR and they increased the compression ratio to 23-1,
Yeah.
which I think is the highest that I know of, unless there are some other newer engines that's even higher. And so they're just trying to make like the cleanest burning engine that they can, and then just clean it up all in after treatment.
Right.
So I felt like in the past they tried to do some emissions work inside of the engine and then just picked up the rest on the way out.
Yeah.
Now they're trying to clean the engine to make it as fuel efficient as possible, and then clean it up in the after treatment. But 23-1. The interesting part was it only runs 1,800 bar fuel pressure, where like an ISX or most other things run 2,800 bar,
Yeah.
which is like 37,000 psi versus like 20-some thousand psi.
That's a big difference. That's a lot of pressure.
It makes sense because they raised the compression ratio so high that any sort of fuel that you put in there is going to be extremely volatile.
Yeah.
And you have really short ignition delays, and you have two options. You either run lots of fuel pressure to vaporize the fuel, or you can't run any timing, or I think their direction is they're going to run more timing and just less fuel pressure, which is an interesting strategy. I've tried that and played around with a little bit on the dyno, but just if the engine's not designed around that, you can't really just pull that off.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like you can't retrofit an ISX to run that way, because in the article they're saying it was 28% of energy or something. I can't remember the unit, but they said that they picked up quite a bit of efficiency by running the pump slower, that they only had to make 1,800 bar of pressure versus like 27.
Right.
I don't know. There's a lot of give and take to that engine, so I'm really curious to see how it actually pans out when it's in a truck. I'm excited for it. I've always liked ProStars. So
Yeah.
hopefully it's just not like a pile that their engines were in the past.
Yeah, it would really be nice if we get this engine and we're able to figure out how to spec it right, how to run it right. I kind of feel like we've got the Volvo platform and Mac down. We've got the Freightliner platform down. We know how to spec them and how to run them. They're efficient. We haven't really figured out the MX yet. And now we've got International. It would be really nice if we could figure those two out, make them work, and we had 4 true options for trucks again.
And it would be nice. I like the direction. The other reason I like the direction International is going is because they're trying something that nobody else is trying, and that gives us more real world data and other manufacturers real world data about how this thing's actually going to work.
Yeah.
Because if everybody does the same thing,
You never learn.
progress.
Right. You never learn.
Right. So, like Volvo is doing that whole wave piston thing and the downsped. Like this engine makes 1850. The biggest rating they have is 515 and 1850 at 900 RPM. Sounds sort of familiar if you're a Volvo guy. Right?
Yep. Yeah, it's fair. It's similar. Exactly.
And I think it's a 14-speed transmission with 1 overdrive. But I think I read in the article that it's optimized to run in direct drive, which, we just already talked about that's more efficient. So,
Yeah.
I want to see one. That's cool.
The interesting thing with direct drive now, it's not nearly as important as it used to be. In fact, we don't really spec the Volvo to run indirect. The Volvo, if you set them upright, the interesting thing is you can actually spec that truck to run in 3 gears. You can spec it at your lowest speed range. If you want to run 55 to say 58, you can spec that for direct sometimes. Then we can have another gear and even a third where you can have this really big speed range where you're efficient from like 55 to 70 even. Knowing that as you go faster, no matter how efficient you are, you're going to lose it. But you can stay more efficient in a bigger range. And they're actually kind of ignoring the direct drive. And the reason we went to direct drive was to pick up that roughly 3% loss of efficiency when you went into an overdrive, the torque reduction, the loss of torque, and the mechanics on those transmissions. We knew we were turning a bunch of shafts. We had all kinds of oil churn. The drive lines now from what I understand, I think Volvo claims that when you go into overdrive now, it's only about 1%. So now by lowering the RPM and the piston speed in overdrive, we're able to pick up more efficiency than we lost by going into overdrive. And that never used to be the case. Before, no matter where you got the engine running RPM-wise, you couldn't make up that 3% loss. Now we can. So now we are speccing some trucks to run in an overdrive.
Because the way that they want to run it in direct drive. I think they said they only really want to use overdrive unless you have to. So,
and
again,
that was,
you have two different.
yeah, that was kind of the way we used to think about it because we didn't want to lose that efficiency in the drive line. But now they've made these new transmissions so efficient, even in overdrive, that we don't really have to worry so much about that. There's not enough of a gain there. So it's interesting that they're taking an opposite approach. They want theirs in overdrive primarily, or direct drive, I mean.
And it's the other interesting point that you said was about when you lower engine speed, you have less friction in the engine, and that's where you can sort of pick up some efficiency through that.
Right.
Well, the effect too is when you raise compression ratio, you also increase internal friction.
Yeah, right.
So I'm just like, they fix one area, and then I don't know if they have a special material that they use, but they make one thing better and make something else work. So I feel like there's a lot of contradictions, or maybe just traditional contradictions. Maybe it's not like that anymore. I'm not sure, but I think that's from their website. They said they built it with the Traton Group, which is a subsidiary of Volkswagen. So
right.
There's a lot of brain power behind that new engine. So.
Yeah, there is. There is. I know Joel did a pretty deep dive into it. John's studying it. I wanted to. I think we'll talk about it more on Friday. But yeah, I would love to see International back in the game again and have that as a real option. The other thing about all of this is it's just getting more and more complicated. Now we're looking at 4 proprietary designs on the market with proprietary engine designs, proprietary transmissions and differentials, and we have 2 different oil classifications now. There was something else the other day that I was reading that just got more complicated because we had more options, but I can't remember what it was. It's just, it's a whole lot harder to keep up with this now.
Yeah, for sure. That's a good point. I didn't think about it that way, but yeah, everything's its own integrated package. Like, that you can't get like a transmission in one truck, you can't get in another. It's all one integrated package. Yeah,
and when you start thinking about troubleshooting and fixing these things, we've talked before about the book on troubleshooting and the skills. But you can read that book and practice those skills. The biggest part about troubleshooting is just pure experience. You've seen this problem so many times, you know how to go troubleshoot it, and you know probably what it's going to be. But when you start dealing with all these platforms that are totally different, you're going to need that kind of experience on every one of these platforms, and it's going to be difficult, really difficult.
Yeah, or you'll just have to specialize in one sort of
right, which is primarily what we see in cars now. You don't take your car to a general mechanic much anymore. You take it back to the dealer because they specialize in that vehicle.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're going to see more of that in trucks. All right, Pete, good morning.
Hi, Kevin. How you doing today?
Good. What's on your mind?
So a couple of things. We're getting ready for the winter blend catalyst. Fall, winter will be here before you know it. So we're going to get that ordered and ready. And last year we sold quite a bit of it and ended up running out. So we're going to make sure we have more of it this year than we did last year. We weren't sure how it was going to take it was the first year we offered it.
Yeah.
We've got that going on. We're working with some new caps. We had some bottles leak, and we found a cap that works. It's just a matter of getting them in to use them. Of course, just like everything else, finding the right cap and bottle is tough. Just like finding any other parts. We're having issues getting what we need.
Yeah.
Right now, we're using the steel caps, which stop the leaking, but we found a better cap with a like a tamper seal on it,
Right.
and waiting for those to.
Yeah. You know,
that was
people don't realize sometimes when I was there, and you guys have, staff meetings, and this was a big issue, and it was talked about for quite a bit of time. And it sounds like you guys have worked on this forever. And people don't realize how much time you can spend on a problem like this just to find the right cap and bottle.
Right. And some of it's out of our control. I mean,
Right.
you can't order what you need, and that's becoming more and more of a problem.
And the quality of the bottle that's made, and
Yeah.
there's just a lot of stuff we can't.
And, I just kind of assumed a bottle's a bottle, and that's not the case.
Well, just to give you an example.
The quality of the bottle, the cap, the
seam, that's when they put it together.
Yeah.
there's lots of bottles.
And caps.
Weird.
I know. And just another example of this, we started working with Bulletproof years ago, and one of the products we buy from Bulletproof and have in our store is oil. It's a brain octane oil. And they have been through, I'll bet, at least 3 different bottles and probably 5 different caps since we've been buying that product to get it right, because every time they had a new bottle or a new cap, there was some sort of a complaint. It dribbles, it drips, it leaks. There's always something, and it's just amazing how many versions of the bottle and cap. I think the most recent works really well. So, but yeah, bottles and caps. Who would have thought?
Well, just like boxes, even with shipping.
Yeah.
Years ago, we had an issue with the mufflers getting damaged, and just by chance, a lady coming that worked for a box company, she's like, "Well, here's what's wrong. The grain's going the wrong way. You need this, you need that."
Right.
And we switched, and 95% of the damage was reduced just by having someone know that a box isn't just a box.
Packaging.
Imagine like growing up to aspire to be like a doctor or like work for NASA, and you like are an expert in boxes. Admirable, but
somebody's got to do it.
And good thing they do. Like I said, there was the ends were getting damaged, and she made this little, very simple, which is sometimes the best, a piece of cardboard folded over like 3 pieces, slid over the ends of the muffler, and again, 99% of the mufflers were no longer getting damaged because of that.
That's big.
So the failure rate dropped crazy on something that cost us like 75 cents for each end.
Wow. Yeah.
It's an inexpensive fix that easy to install. My guys just shoved it in on top of the muffler, and it took care of a bunch of problems. I don't think a lot of people realize what's involved in a lot of things.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So you have to do it.
And then the last thing is, and at the show in Louisville, we had the spouts that were for the catalyst. We would give a couple of them out for people to try, and we're still working on them. They worked great. They just weren't holding up, and they have to get a new seal, and they had to use a new type of plastic. But we're getting close to having those ready, which is going to be really convenient. You put this on, open the spout, and then be able to pour it an exact amount without wasting anything.
There you go. Good. All right. What else we got?
That's it for me.
Well, it's quite the segue here, because it looks like our first caller up today wants to talk about the max mileage container. You can't make this stuff up. Let's go to Texas. Hey, Mike, jump in and join the conversation here.
Hey, Kevin.
Good morning. What's on your mind today?
Yeah. Well, I just thought you were just going all around this little subject I had here.
Yeah,
so
that's
that was
right.
pretty funny. So my question was, I know, oh man, it might have been 2 years ago when you guys mentioned something about it, but I got a gallon of it. I wanted to split it up into 2 containers because I have a couple of trucks. I thought somebody had said before that you can't put it in just any container, or maybe it'll eat through it or something. And I can't recall what it really was that you guys said about that. I knew Bruce was there, and whoever was just talking about it. So I feel like we got the right people to answer the question. That's for sure.
Pete, I think it was you, right? Or Bruce, there's a certain type of plastic, right?
And the container has been fluorinated 5 times. That keeps the plastic from leaching into the catalyst. So you can store it in a glass jar.
Okay.
But you can't put it in other plastic. Now, the 5-hour energy bottles, those little 2-ounce bottles, they're compatible with it.
Oh.
And so is the Dawn 1-gallon pump. And it screws right into our gallon.
Ah, interesting.
And 2 pumps is 2 ounces. And there's a fleet out of Buffalo, New York. Carl Kellner did this for them. They save their 5-ounce energy bottles. And so the driver knows that when he's buying 50 gallons, he pumps 1 5-hour energy bottle with the catalyst in it for every 50 gallons. So that makes it a little more simple.
Yeah, right. That's what we need.
But we have another guy. He has 7-ounce glass bottles for his fleet, and it's a fleet of 7 Freightliners, and they run Buffalo, New York to San Francisco and back. And his drivers buy at the same place all the time, so he has the glass bottles ready to go, and they buy 175 gallons at a time, and they're holding in the 7-ounce glass jars.
Perfect. That gives me a lot of options. Yeah, that's great. Because I had a couple guys, and we're just doing the pickups. So, but still, I think either the pump or I have the syringes. So that won't be a big deal. I just like I said, I just knew if we went off and did that, it was going to eat through it. So I was like, couldn't remember what. So that answered all my questions. I really appreciate it.
We do sell 5 or half-gallon bottles here, and if you buy a gallon, the next time you buy a gallon, just order a empty half-gallon. That way you can put it up.
And they're
bigger chlorinated in there.
Like the 1 gallon, right?
Yeah,
okay.
Correct.
Yeah, cool.
Why not just buy 2 half-gallons? You don't have to do that.
It's cost-effective to buy the 1 gallon, but either way it would work.
Yeah, and wherever I got it in Kansas City from a dealer. I can't remember who they were, but they only had the 1 gallons.
Was it Cross and Sons? It's Seward? No,
I don't
Lincoln. Okay, Kansas City. Wouldn't that have been T&E?
T&E, probably.
Yeah, that's what it was. Yep.
Good.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Good. All right. Thanks for the call. Hey, Bruce, we have an issue like that we have to warn people about. I mentioned earlier the brain octane. We went through all these different bottles and caps, and the other issue we have to warn people about that. Occasionally, somebody will try to put that into a styrofoam cup, and it will dissolve styrofoam instantly.
Wow.
Yeah.
I got to order some of that.
Yeah. It's that's my secret weapon. I love that stuff.
If that oil dissolves styrofoam, so does fiberglass resin. Powerful brain oil, Kevin.
Well, it is, but I got thinking about it. We don't think about this, but when we talk about fat, and that's what oil is. Oil's just basically pure fat. We're talking about fatty acids. So these are acids. They will dissolve certain other stuff, and styrofoam is one of them, and it's instant. The cup just disappears.
When I was about 19 years old, I was already doing wrecked Corvettes, and somebody gave me one of those little sailboats.
Yeah.
And it was just a piece of styrofoam. Whatever the hardness they had on the outside was all gone. And
yeah.
so I'll just make my own fiberglass shell. So I mixed up a cup of resin, and I'm laying it on with my paintbrush, and then I'm going to put my matting over it. And as I was painting it on that styrofoam, the more I painted, the more the boat melted.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting.
So half of that boat melted on my garage floor, and I said, "Well, I guess this isn't compatible."
That's not going to work. Yep, that's how you learn. That's how you learn.
Yep.
All right, we got to get to some phone calls. They're piling up on us here. Let's go to Georgia. Eric, welcome to the program.
Yeah, the OPS, how far away from the engine can we mount that? Because I'm having an issue trying to find a location under the engine compartment that I can mount that thing.
Oh, I think you can mount it pretty far away. I bet you can mount it behind the cab. Back years ago when we did the Harvard, we put some behind the cab.
I was just going to
say, you might want to go to a number 8 line to feed it. That way you still have the volume. But actually, the OPS doesn't require a lot of volume. So
it doesn't.
The standard lines would probably work.
Yeah, you'd be fine.
Okay, that's what I was thinking, is putting a headache rack on the back for extra batteries anyways. And then I'd mount it to the side of the headache rack about halfway up.
I think it'll work.
Keep it as low as you can, but
yeah, make sure you've got that correct drop. You got to have a certain number of inches to drop. But Bruce, same thing. When every cab over I ever put the Harvard on, we always put it on the back of the cab. There just wasn't enough room under the cab to get it in there.
Mm-hmm.
I've got one more thing. You had I listened to the replay yesterday, and got a kick out of your little koala thing. I didn't have to ask though. Cerium oxide. By the way, that's cheating. The way you did that, that's cheating. You can't play the game that way.
Of course I can. I did, oxide. And I won.
Cerium oxide is a cheaper replacement today than windshield. Of course, you're going to take it out anyways in order to get your refrigerator out of your RV there. But cerium oxide will polish the little sand chips and all that stuff right out of the windshield.
Really? Huh.
What is this stuff?
Do you use it
it's
on?
It's called cerium oxide. You just you put a little bit on a like a foam, not foam, but a felt pad on a grill, and then you wet the felt pad with this mineral on it, cerium oxide, and then you just let the drill do the work. You just polish the windshield right down.
Hey, I just wonder.
Takes it right back to new.
If it works that well on a drill, I bet it would work even better on like an orbital buffer.
It might, they tell you to use a drill. I've always used a drill. It's less than the cerium oxide is less than a micron in size, so it'll take you a little while to do it.
Huh.
So yeah, maybe an orbital buffer might be good, but just make sure you use a felt pad, dip it in water, and then put the cerium oxide on the outside of it, and don't use pressure. Just kind of let it do its thing.
Really?
So how do you know about this chemical?
Well, it's not a chemical. It's just a dry mineral. But I know about it because I've polished windshields with it to get the line. You know how on a car, if you leave the car set outside for a long period of time, you'll get lines on it that you just can't clean out. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I do. How do you spell that? Cerium.
Cirium, I believe.
Okay. Where do you buy it?
I buy it on Amazon.
Huh. Interesting.
It's just a red powder.
All right.
That had a call coming in.
So if you had, what would it do to like a plexiglass window?
No, it would polish it down, but it would probably polish it down way faster.
Hey, Bruce, speaking of that, so, I started painting cars when I was about 16. I had a brother-in-law who was just a master body technician, taught me all about it. So I was pretty good. And then when I went in the military, we were the first unit to start flying the Cobra helicopters with night vision goggles. That was like a big thing back then. And those night vision goggles back then, they cost like $35,000 a pair. And I know that because one of our crew chiefs stole a pair from a pilot and waited about 4 or 5 months and tried to sell them and got caught doing it, ended up in Leavenworth. Yeah, they were crazy expensive back then. And we were one of the first units to start flying Cobras with those. The problem was the windscreens, what you think of as glass on those Cobras is all some sort of plastic, plexiglass, Lexan. I don't know exactly what they are, but they scratch really easily and they get those swirls. And flying it during the day, you hardly notice it. Every now and then, if the sun would hit it right, you'd get those big glares, but it wasn't that big of a deal till we tried to fly those things at night. With the night vision goggles, we had pilots almost puking because the reflections were making them crazy in there. And they were trying to figure out what to do. And I came in one weekend just for the fun of it and thought, what if I treat these things just like I treat paint? Because, when back then we used to do a lot of lacquer. So you would, sand the paint back down between coats. Then you would spray more. Then you would sand it down again. And then when you got done, you'd wet sand it. You'd buff it. You'd keep going finer and finer on your compounds. And then at the end, you'd use like a fill and glaze, to get rid of all those swirl marks. So I came in one weekend.
The magic pink stuff.
Yeah, fill and glaze, the pink stuff, yeah. I came in one weekend and said, I'm going to treat one of these windscreens just like I do paint. And I did the same thing. I started with like 600 grit sandpaper and wet sanded it and destroyed it. It was awful. I'm like, oh my God, wonder what one of these things is going to cost. And then I just kept working on it and treated it like paint. I had those things looking like glass at the end. They were just crystal clear when you were done. Yeah. So same kind of concept. You're just getting those fine scratches out more and more till they're gone.
Yeah, when you buy the kit, they come with different sandpaper things, different sandpaper amounts, little discs that are about 2.5 to 3 inches in size. You can get scratches out of the glass with them like that if you buy the whole kit, but it doesn't come with very much cerium oxide. I just buy the cerium oxide separately.
Yeah, the downside to that story was I was the hero for solving the problem, but then I had 13 other helicopters I had to do. It was a lot of work.
No good deed goes unpunished.
Exactly.
You guys have a great day.
All right, you too. Thanks for the call. That's interesting. I'm going to look into that. Let's go to Wyoming. Patrick, welcome to the program.
Morning, guys.
What's on your mind today?
Speaking of the catalyst and the problems that we're having with some of them jugs and bags and boxes, and the only thing that seems to neutralize it out of leather anyway, I don't know what it does in cloth, but out of leather, the vinegar, just a regular white vinegar, seems to neutralize the smell, and it took it right out of that seat that it got spilled in when that bottle opened on us. So
did it open on what kind of seat? A truck seat?
No, it was a seat in her 4Runner. She was actually taking 2 jugs out to deliver, and one of them was leaking.
The white vinegar.
So
the white vinegar, yep. And she took it and put it in the bucket, and then she took a rag and wiped it on the seat, and then had all the windows down and had the 4Runner outside on, I think this was on Saturday. And come back about an hour later and did it again. Now, there's electronics in these seats, there's heat and cold air that blows when you want it to on these seats. So she kind of had to be a little bit careful with that. But Heidi got it out of there, by God, and no more catalyst smell in the brand new car. So that worked out really good.
Hey, that's interesting. Vinegar is a great product for cleaning all kinds of things. Great for glass and a bunch of other things. Right. And I just found something I didn't know existed, but it's pretty awesome. I've always used just, whatever white vinegar you've got underneath the sink or wherever you keep it. And that's like a 5% acidity. They actually make concentrated cleaning vinegars. There's nothing else in them. They're just vinegar, so it's a really natural product. But I've seen it all the way up to like 75% acidity. And it's pretty incredible. Wow. I've used like 30% on glass, and it's amazing.
Wow. Well, the lead electrical engineer for Pittsburgh Plate Glass is a good friend of mine, and we were together 2 weeks ago, and he said he mixes 1 cup of vinegar, 1 cup of water, and 2 ounces of Dawn in a spray bottle, and that's what he uses for cleaning things.
I think you can also use that for killing weeds.
Oh, right.
Bug repellent too, probably.
Yeah.
It won't kill the grass, because I just killed some grass.
I don't know. It would probably kill grass. I think the recipe I've seen to use vinegar for killing weeds you can only put it on weeds, not like weeds in your grass.
Vinegar, Dawn, and Epsom salt. And if you have weeds coming up through, like you have river rock down or mulch, and you spray it on a hot, sunny day, by evening everything's dead.
There you go.
That quick.
That's what I've seen. Yep.
It
That's
works
exactly
really
vinegar and Epsom salt. What's the mixture?
Like 2 to 1, I think, is what it is, guys.
It was a cup of Epsom salt, a half gallon of vinegar, and like a quarter cup of Dawn. If I remember right. I have it written down at home because I use it because I have river rock at my house. And even though I have that matting down underneath, the stuff comes up through there once in a while.
You know what the Dawn's in there for?
Why?
I don't.
Makes it cling.
Clean the rock.
Yep. Clings it. Yep. Hangs onto the weed that way. To clean the rock.
So the reason why I called was we finally got a customer of mine up in Cheyenne squared away with a tune, and it took the guy over a year to kind of get things squared away with all his sensors and all the things that were wrong with this Cummins. And we brought him in, hooked him up. JR looked it over and said, "Well, you got too many things wrong, so here's your list. Go knock yourself out." Well, from a camshaft to the valve. I'm missing a word here on the turbo, the actuator on the turbo, and an air to air and a bunch of sensors. This kid did all the hard work. He finally got it squared away. We brought him in. We tuned him. He wasn't really happy with the tune, so we brought him back about 2 weeks later, and JR finished doing his magic, and he missed a couple of things, and these kind of things happen. And if you guys are if you're waiting to get a tune or want to get a tune, and you're not happy with it, all I can say is bring them back. We'll help you with the hard work, because we're looking to make that long-term relationship, or at least I am. And these guys are coming to us in Cheyenne and getting these higher altitude tunes, and they're coming out with at least a mile to the gallon better, and especially when they're on flat ground. And they're pull like a freight train up in the mountains. So I just keep going back to what Kevin said for years. If you're not willing to do the hard work, then you're just kind of pissing up a rope, for lack of a better term, I guess.
There you go. That's why I say it every day to remind myself.
It took over a year to do this. Yeah, it took this kid almost a year to get this done, and he's getting. I think he's picked up a mile to the gallon. So we're real happy for him about that. And he's running the Catalyst, and we're going to be experimenting with some other stuff with him too. But right now we're tickled to death that he finally got some fuel mileage out of that Cummins.
There you go. Good stuff.
So, yep. Anyway, guys, I'll let you go. Good talking to you.
All right. Thanks for the call. Let's keep rolling here because the calls keep piling up on us. We're going to head off to Wisconsin. Dan, welcome to the program.
Sorry, I didn't have my microphone down.
Well,
I sent you an oil sample.
Yes, you did.
And, should have been.
Let's take a look.
It's 2002 International 9200 C12 2KS. This is a crate motor that was put in, and my question was, would you agree with their recommendation on the copper?
No. I don't think that copper at 533 is wear metal break-in. That's I don't know why they would write that about copper. They should have separated out all their wear metals because they made kind of a... So here's what their comments say. Most of the metals we marked as being high last time have come down. That's a true pattern when you're talking about a new engine. Those are break-in metals. But then they say, though copper jumped dramatically, it's possible that this is still wear-in material. That's true of all the other wear metals, but not copper. Because how would we even get to copper if we hadn't worn through the lead on the bearing yet? And 533 would not be break-in material in copper. That is an oil cooler leaching copper. It's nothing to worry about. We don't have to do anything, but that copper is not break-in material. That's the oil cooler leaching. But other than that, I agree with everything, and the pattern is correct. Everything's heading in the direction we want to see it go.
Okay. So, I don't know if they put a new oil cooler on it when they put the new motor in it.
It wouldn't matter, and this is never an issue. I've seen it happen with brand new oil coolers. I've seen it happen with oil coolers that have 1 million+ miles on them. It's random. There's no pattern to it, but the good news is it never causes a problem.
Outstanding. I was hoping to keep my call short and sweet, and that's what we did. So thank you.
There you go. You're welcome. Now that is exactly what we want to see with the wear metals. Let's go to Texas. Bill, welcome to the program.
Good morning there, guys.
What's on your mind today?
Got a follow-up on that IFX that we thought made oil last week.
I remember. What did you find out? Yeah.
Got the oil sample back, and the guy from Pittsburgh Power called me with a concern on the sample for high viscosity, but no fuel dilution.
What about if you've got high viscosity? Do you have the sample in front of you?
No, I don't. I can pull it up.
Yeah. Did anybody look at sodium and potassium?
Hold on just a second. Get over here to my horizon.
Yeah. So
the viscosity raise was because of the Lucas that I added.
Okay. Okay, that makes sense then.
And that's the only thing that was flagged was the viscosity. Like I said, I told him, I said, well...
What was the number?
Oh, trying to look right here. That ain't the right sample, so let's go back. This one, there it is. You report.
The reason we're looking for sodium and potassium is because that would indicate coolant. Coolant would obviously increase our levels, and coolant will raise viscosity as well.
Sodium was 2, potassium was 5.
No, so something is still very, very confusing about this whole story. So the only two liquids I'm aware of that we could get more of so that the oil level goes up is fuel and coolant. There really isn't anything else.
Right.
And if we don't have fuel and we don't have coolant, the only other answer is one of your buddies is messing with you and he put extra oil in your truck when you weren't looking.
Like I say, when they done the service, they must have overfilled it.
Oh,
because I had the fuel actuator and the service at the same time.
That's right. We determined that you didn't check the level right away after the service.
Right.
That's what it is then. And this oil sample verifies it. They just put too much oil back in the engine. Hey, Pete, Bruce, anybody, 3 gallons? Could we do some damage here with that much oil pressure and that much volume in an engine?
So I think what would happen would be the crank throws hitting the oil, which would then aerate it, and I would think that would show up as low oil pressure.
Huh, okay.
Some shock that didn't show up.
No, my oil pressure stayed right there about between 35 and 40.
Yeah, it sounds like everything's going to be fine. You know, you got it figured out. You got the extra oil out of there, and you should be okay.
The only thing I've ever seen happen, and this was on a K-Series Cummins, they had put double oil in.
Whoa.
So, and it knocked out the front and rear crank seal.
Wow.
Remember that, Pete, that was on that engine for that drilling company down in Kentucky? They... What's it called? They drilled through the wall.
High wall
drilling, yeah. We'd built the engine and we'd put oil in, and then they got the engine and they put oil in.
That's a lot of extra oil. Holy cow.
Yeah, the thing probably held 15 gallons, so they ended up with 30 in it.
Yeah. Ooh.
I ran my 89 Dodge in Colorado with the Cummins in it. It was 100% over. It had a leaky seal in the injection pump. And I didn't catch it until the day I was leaving to drive back to Pennsylvania. I saw an oil film on the back window of the cap. And I pulled out the dipstick, and instead of having 3 gallon, I had 6 gallon in there, and 3 of it was fuel. And I was driving down through Salida at 95 mile an hour the day before in that truck. So even diluted 100%, so it was 50% oil, 50% diesel fuel. It still did not hurt anything in that B-Series Cummins.
That's pretty incredible.
How bulletproof those 5.9 were. And they were almost indestructible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was proof right there that they can handle anything.
Well, Bill, I think
the problem was, Kevin,
Go ahead, Bruce.
I was in Breckenridge, Colorado in a condo, and I had to find a place to get rid of 6 gallon oil and borrow a vehicle to take the fuel pump off and take it into Denver. And Cummins wouldn't sell me a fuel pump because they didn't have the one for the right CPL. And I said, I don't care. I just need anyone. I've got a boost gauge and a pyrometer. I just need this engine to run. And so I took it to a fuel injection shop, and for $28, they put a seal in it and fixed my problem.
There you go. There you go. Well, Bill, I think I think the mystery is
Yeah, the
solved
only
here, and
advice
it
that I
sounds
can-
like you got away okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And my advice to everyone is if you have your truck serviced in a place you don't normally get it serviced, verify your oil level.
Hey, Bill, let me just add to that. Even if you get it serviced in a place you've had it serviced 100 times before, still just check it.
Yeah.
Just check it. It only takes a couple seconds, and anybody can make a mistake. You know, you have one of those times where one mechanic is working on it. There's an emergency. He gets sick. He has to leave. Another one steps in. Mistakes can happen. The other one I will tell people, if you have a fleet air filter and you're having your truck serviced someplace else, before you pull off that lot, make sure you got your fleet air filter back. We've had people throw those away.
Wow. And let me tell you something else you want to check after somebody else changes your oil. You want to put an oil filter wrench on, make sure the oil filter is tight, and you want to check the drain plug. We've seen them both come loose. The old drain plug and the oil filter.
Bruce, my worst.
I've got the quick drain on my drain.
Okay.
My worst year in trucking, about my third or fourth year in. We had 11 trucks at the time, and they were scattered all over the place. We had a couple on our own authority. It was me and my older brother. We had some with FedEx, which was RPS at the time. We had some running for a local Coke bottling plant. We had some with Aldi's, the grocery company, when they first came into Ohio way back then. We were we were brokering some freight. So our trucks were scattered. We couldn't get them serviced and washed. So we actually went out and bought a panel van and put a wash unit in it and an oil change set up, and we started doing our own. And I hired one of my other brothers to do it. And that year, I almost went bankrupt. It was so close. We had all cats back then, too. Internationals with cats. We had one engine that we knew we were going to have to in-frame that year, so we had budgeted for that one in-frame. We were running most of our trucks never left Ohio. We ran all over Ohio, but we almost never left. So a base plate back then, you could buy a plate just for Ohio for $400. And fuel was 80 some cents a gallon. So that's the operation. And within like a month, we started to do the in-frame on the one we knew we needed to do. I had one cat overheat, and the driver never stopped, and he wiped out that engine. And I had another one where right after the service, the drain plug came out. And you didn't have any of the babysitters back then, and we wiped out another engine. It was my brother that did it. You know, what am I going to do? And fuel went from 80 some cents a gallon to $1.40. First time we had ever even heard the term fuel surcharge, because it went over $1.25. What else happened? It was just horrible. I mean, I was applying for credit cards to try to pay for everything. It got so bad. A drain plug.
I've gone through that, Kevin. In '92, I was using credit cards to pay the employees to keep things going during that recession.
That's a scary feeling. All right.
I would visit the bank every day and beg them not to bounce checks.
Yeah.
It was tough.
Yeah, I remember those times well. All right. Bill, anything else we can help you with?
No, that's it for today.
All right. Thanks for the call. Let's head off to Ohio. Steve, welcome to the program.
Good morning, guys.
What's on your mind today?
Good. Yeah, it might be a question for Dr. Jane, but Bruce may know. The end of last year, I went ahead. I had made a lot of money last year, so I went ahead and bought 4 gallons of catalyst right at the end of the year. And I just got ready last weekend to open the last one. I said, this thing's a little light. And I held it up to the light, and it was half full. It was full when I got it. So I had evaporation. I opened the cap, make sure I hadn't done anything. No, it still had the silver, seal on the inside. So I had a half of it evaporate. My question is, I'm sure there's some filler in there, and I'm sure if anything evaporated, that's what it would be. Since it's half, all the active ingredient is in half of the gallon. Can half an ounce per 25 gallons of fuel for that one?
I don't think there's any filler in that, but I want you to call me right after the show, and I'm going to have you talk to her partner, Britt, because Jane right now is in Hawaii.
Ah, okay. Okay. Well, I only have her cell number. So what is his number there where he's at? I have her cell number. Talk to her.
I'll give you Britt, and you can ask Britt. Britt will be able to answer that question for you. And here's his number. He's been in the chemical business his entire life also, and he's mid-60s. I'm close here. There's so many. 858
contacts.
858 414 2166. 2166.
Yeah. So my advice to everybody is, buy it maybe a little bit ahead, but not maybe not 7 or 8 months ahead, 8 months ahead, because
something's wrong here, because I have some that's 3 years old and I haven't seen that.
Now there was the bottle was full. It was full when I got it. I mean, I know that. I mean, I always check them all.
Hey.
And at Kinley, I've actually, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, Steve, I think we may have the same issue we had with the last caller. I think your buddy stole half your catalyst.
Yeah, but the only problem is nobody has a key to my building except me. It's all me. Now, it was the seal was still on it. Still on it. And I did it the year before. Also. I bought 4 gallons at the end of the year before, and they all worked out. But I figured it might have been a little air hole there, and that allowed some evaporation.
There had to be something weird going on, because, like Bruce, I have an original bottle they sent to me. And Bruce, if that was 3 years ago, I was just trying to figure out when it was. You sent me an original bottle, and I stuck it in the garage and forgot about it. And then when I went to use the catalyst, I just grabbed a gallon from the warehouse, and I just found that bottle, and it's completely full. I mean, there doesn't feel like there's any loss in it at all.
I was thinking it must be I was thinking there must be maybe that seal wasn't really tight, and some air was able to get whatever could evaporate out. Now, what I have noticed, I have closely when I'm at Kinley to buy, because they're at all different levels. I know they start out at the top, but they're at different levels. So it may be their seal is not exactly tight, and it may have a little bit of evaporation, or they, so I always buy the ones that are full at the top. But I'm gonna buy them one at a time now, because I'm in Kinley every week. I fuel there every week, so I can get it like that. I was just trying to get an extra $1,000 expenses last year against all that income from last year. So I went ahead and bought at the end of the year.
Call next week and tell us what Britt had to say.
Yeah, I will. I will do that.
Okay. That's your homework assignment.
He'll know whether or not like I say, the active ingredient would not have evaporated, I imagine. So he'll know whether or not it would be, advantageous on that one to cut it in half and see, because the active ingredient is concentrated now.
Reason I know there's no filler, because if there was filler and we wanted to put in the winter blend, we would take out the filler and put the winter blend in, and you'd still have a mixture rate of 1 ounce to 25 gallon. But that doesn't happen. You see, so whenever we make the winter blend now, it's 2 ounces to 25 gallon, because half the gallon is the winter blend. So there's no filler.
Yeah. So, like I say, I'm gonna going forward. I'm gonna make sure I just buy I mean, I'm by there every week. I can buy it. Mine lasts 2.5 months, getting over 9 miles per gallon. You know, so it's not like it's not like I'm having to buy one every month and a half like some of these guys. But
Okay.
you know, getting a better fuel economy. Okay. Well, all right. Well,
Hey.
we're still testing the fuel mileage additives, and I'm getting my numbers together here next week. I'll have the numbers for August with the 2 ounce
Good.
for 25. So
Good. We'll look
So
forward to hearing back.
I'll
And
have it all posted in the Pittsburgh Power site on Trucking Tribe.
excellent. All right. And thanks for
Okay. All right.
the article about the Stanford goalie. I'll add it to my collection.
Yeah, I tell you, I've been sending you. I think I've sent you 2 in the last week, and it's just like they're just popping up everywhere.
Isn't that crazy?
And you know, a cause of death was not determined.
Never.
I love that part. Never is.
And come on, let's think about this. When healthy 22-year-olds die, why aren't we doing autopsies so we know what killed them?
Well, we needed to, you know, with COVID, with trillions of dollars out there, we needed to be able to do autopsies on every person. And then you can determine whether or not it was that murder-suicide that caused it instead of the COVID that they tested positive for. Or the auto accident that they happened to test positive for it.
And the same with these young athletes especially, but all young people. We hear about the athletes. They make the news. And if this many young athletes keep making the news because they're falling over dead, how many non-famous people is it happening to? Because we're not going to see that. They're not going to put that in the news. So these numbers are, I mean, like you said, you sent me a couple this week. I find a couple new ones every week.
Yeah.
So are we talking about
1 in 5?
We talking about people that got all the COVID shots that are passing away?
Yep. That's exactly what we're talking about. And when we talk about young athletes, that this is a really, really common group. These people are just falling over dead with heart conditions. And they never list a cause of death, and they don't tell you whether they're vaccinated or not.
Mm-hmm.
And they should have been doing autopsies on everyone. But yeah, Dr. Malone said that of the people that have been vaccinated, 1 in 5,000 have a serious problem with the vaccine or death. And, you say, well, 1 in 5,000, that's not a whole lot. But if you put it up to 180 million people that got the shots, that's a lot.
When we're talking about severe medical issues, 1 in 5,000 is horrendous. We normally talk about 1 in hundreds of thousands. I saw a new statistic that the odds of some sort of myocarditis in people under 30 is like 1 in 25.
Wow, that's crazy. And of course now they're saying, well, we've kind of been wrong with all this stuff, but never mind.
Oops, we got it wrong.
Look the other way. Fauci's retiring.
2 years early now too. I think he's a little afraid of the Republicans getting into Congress and coming after him.
Oh yeah.
But
who was that, Kevin?
Fauci. Lord Fauci. He announced a couple weeks ago he was going to retire in 2 years. Now he moved it up to December. He's retiring in December. Here's the thing, though. If Congress wants to go after him, it's not going to matter that he's retired, will it? We should still go after him.
Nope.
Why would that matter?
Highest paid government employee in the country.
Yeah, he is. Single highest paid person in our federal government.
Yep.
The very first time he was on stage with Donald Trump, and the way Trump looked down at him out of the corner of his eye, I knew Trump didn't trust that guy.
No, and he shouldn't trust him.
I saw that. I said, man. And then when my doctor since 1979, who's a chiropractor and applied kinesiologist and all that other stuff, he told me don't take the shot. And the very next day, you're on the radio saying don't take the shot. I said, that's all I need to know. I'm not taking the shot.
Yeah.
So,
he. It's
when you said it, Kevin. I said, all right, that's 2 people right there that have studied this stuff. I said, that's enough for me.
Yeah, it's still happening. Young people are dying in record numbers. And you look at the statistics around the world, and people are dying for what they call all-cause mortality. That means every single reason somebody could die. Suicides, plane crashes, drowning in your bathtub, whatever it might be. That number has gone through the roof around the world, and nobody is explaining why. And it's not COVID. We're taking the COVID deaths out of that number. So we're not counting the COVID deaths. We're just people dying for all reasons, for some reason, has gone through the roof in the last 2 years.
Crazy.
So, all right. Anything else, Steve?
That's it for the day. As Paul would say, that's all I've got.
All right, that's all I need. We're going to head off to Detroit. Robert, welcome to the program.
Oh, yeah. I was calling about the catalyst. I wanted to let you guys know that I stick it in the Sta-Bil brand bottle. I don't use it in my semi. I use it in my Harley and lawnmower. And to get down to that 5 milliliters for a 5-gallon can, that Sta-Bil bottle has a doser right on it. And you can just squeeze it and it'll go right to 5 milliliters and then pour it right in the can. And it works good. It is not the bottle or nothing.
A lot of people are using that bottle.
You know, I was going to mention a bottle like that where they have that funky top on it where you can squeeze out certain amounts and measure right from the bottle. I always thought those were cool.
We have it in the 1 ounce. When you squeeze it, it puts out 1 ounce.
Yeah, those are kind of neat. I'll bet they're expensive, though.
Pete, how much are those bottles?
So the 16-ounce bottle with the you squeeze it to half ounce or 1 ounce, they're like $5 1/4 each. So yeah, they're not cheap bottles.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And we actually looked into the gallon bottle that had the same setup, but it was just awkward.
Yeah, I'll bet.
The little bottle's fine. I use that for my vehicles. I'll put a half ounce in there, a little less than half ounce, depending on how much fuel I put in the car. But the big one, it just didn't work out well. I wasn't happy with it.
Got it.
And then I'll store some in a glass, like he said, a glass jar, but baby food. A baby food jar, you can put 2 ounces in it and carry it around with you in the back of your truck or wherever, and you'll never smell it. You'll never know it.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, I carry it in the minced garlic jar in my Harley.
Minced garlic, that's another
baby food jar gets it in the Harley. That way the Harley don't shake it open.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have an outlet for baby food jars. I'll see you find somebody with a baby.
Bruce, you could use a few more grandkids.
I've got 3.
I know.
That's enough.
All right. Anything else, Robert?
But that's all I got.
All right.
Nope,
that's all we need. Thanks for the call. Let's head off to Washington. Jerry, welcome back.
Hey, you guys. So I called back in October, and I asked a question, and then you guys had to go to commercial. And then I heard Bruce talking to Pete, and he says, how often do we tell these guys to run these motors only 2,000 miles for braking and change oil? And I thought, okay, I'm an idiot, and Bruce is now mad at me. So, okay, but I'm going to ask another question. And Bruce, you're not allowed to say anything except the correct answer because I'm just drawing a brain fart and I can't figure it out for the life of me. So the same motor, big cam 350, I have the OPS on it. We stuck the OPS on, and I can't remember for the life of me what it is you guys said to service the motor with for how many miles. When we didn't have the OPS, I did it about every 10 to 12,000. But now that I have the OPS on, I'm not sure what the mile range is to service the truck now.
So when you want to know with the OPS when you're going to change the oil?
No, I want to know to change the filters. I know the oil doesn't get changed until the oil sample tells me to change it, and I still grease it every 10,000 miles, but it's okay. When do I change the filters in it? When would I do that? And so that's my question.
Well, Kevin's always said 25,000 on the big cam. You might want to drop that down a little bit. But why don't we look and see what the sample says?
You know, the first sample I would probably do at 15,000, and the only real difference, the only reason we would go a little earlier on a mechanical engine is we're just going to look for fuel dilution, because they're just notorious for fuel dilution. And as long as we're not seeing excessive fuel dilution at 15,000, then I would just go to 25.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure before I just started changing it. Because, you know, it's like, okay, the reason for the OPS is to save money, you know, and to check your oil samples to see how your motor is turning. But then, you know, it's like, okay, then why would I keep changing the filters at 12,000 if I'm trying to save money and my oil samples are coming back fine?
Right.
So that was my question. Go ahead.
When you rebuilt the 350, did you keep it at 350 or just set it up?
I had to keep it at 350 because it took them almost 2.5 months just to rebuild it because they couldn't get the parts. So to get it any higher was just going to wait that much longer for parts. So
you should have called Pete. That's Pete's specialty, is finding big cam parts. He's good at it too.
Well, I have a big cam 400, and I actually talked to Pete about this 2 or 3 months ago, and I talked to Pete and said, hey, I've got a big cam 400 that's just sitting that I want to put in another truck or have it as a spare. Do you think I could do it myself? And Pete said, yeah, other than a couple of tools you might need, he says, we can set you up with everything that you're going to need. And I was like, okay, so I haven't dropped the hammer on that yet because I've been so busy, but I'm going to do that on that big cam 4 and just try and do it myself and then bump up the power on that one.
How many pound of boost does does the 350 develop?
When I'm running, so I get it in about maybe once every couple weeks. I'll hop in it on a Saturday and pull a load, and going up not a big hill, but a nice little incline, fully loaded at 98,000, I'll be pushing about 17 pounds.
Okay, 18 is a 350, so you're down about 18 horsepower.
Okay, I'll have to look and see why that is then. And
send us the fuel pump and let us reseal and set up the pump for you and get that on up to about 22 pounds. And then the 350 injector is actually smaller than a 290-300 injector by 10 cc's of fuel. You ought to let us reflow the injectors and set up the pump and make it at 350 to a nice 400 for you, and that won't hurt it.
Yeah, but the problem is it runs every day, and you're way in Pennsylvania, and I'm way over here in Washington, so that kind of poses a little bit of an issue.
I thought you said just jump in it every now and then, so you have a driver.
I do,
right?
When the driver's not doing anything, and I feel like hopping in it because I haven't been in it in a while. I'll hop in it on, like I just drove it last Saturday. Customer called and they were out of product. So I ran up real quick, and I only ran maybe 100 miles, and that was it, and took in some product real fast. But it runs every day. It's getting, I have him drive it at 55 miles an hour. It turns about 1,600 RPMs, and it's averaging right about 6.2 miles to the gallon.
What do you have?
And that's what it's doing right now.
411s in that thing?
Did you put our dual fuel line kit on it?
No, I didn't know anything about a dual fuel line kit or anything for it. I should probably call you guys and ask what I can do it.
Yeah. Feeds the front head and feeds the rear head. Evenly distributes the fuel in the engine, and it gains 25 horsepower. And if you've got a 13-speed, that's a half a gear. So 25 horsepower, the engine runs smoother, pulls stronger, and you didn't increase the fuel at all.
Wow. And I will have to call you and do that.
When was the last time you changed the fuel suction line?
When they did the in-frame, we did all of that. We changed all the fuel lines and everything when I did the in-frame on it. So
did they set the line of protrusion? Did they set the line of intrusion to 7,000s?
That I couldn't tell you because I didn't know much about what was going on back then and wasn't asking too many questions other than I took him a new dampener and he looks at me and he goes, "What's this?" And I was like, "It's a new dampener." "Why do we need this?" "Because I've had the truck for this many years and it's got this many miles, I'm sure, and it needs a new one." And he goes, "We don't usually replace those." And I goes, "That's nice, but you're going to replace this one. So here it is, put this one on." You know, so and the guy was like, "Okay, it's your money." And I was like, "Yep, you're right. It is my money. So
and it's my engine, too.
So,
that's right.
Exactly. So,
Well,
but one...
An old friend of mine called me yesterday, and he's driving. He's got some trucks in Idaho, but he had a chance to go do some hauling in Alaska. And he's worked in Alaska on and off for years. But he's driving another guy's truck that has a fleet of Acer Cats, and he said, "This thing vibrates so bad." He said, "Send me a damper and balancer to Alaska." So that's going out today.
Yeah, it's crazy, you know, and just, I mean, I don't know. That's like when I sold that gray 389 I had, the guy's looking at it and he goes, "What's this shiny thing here?" I was like, "Oh, I was supposed to paint that red." And he goes, "Well, what is it?" And I goes, "That's the dampener." And he goes, "Well, why is it silver?" And I was like, "Well, because it's brand new." And he goes, "Why'd you replace that? It only had this many miles." And I was like, "Because you're supposed to do it at 500,000. And he goes, "Really?" And I'm like, "Yeah, you need to listen to this show and listen to this guy here because they're going to tell you to replace a bunch of stuff. But don't worry, it's already been done on this truck. Everything that's supposed to be replaced has already been replaced."
That's right.
He's like, "Oh, okay, maybe I need to listen to him," which I don't know if he ever listened to you. I don't have a clue, you know. But yeah, it's funny. I go into shops and go, "I need this replaced or this," and they're like, "Why are you doing this?" "Well, because that's what makes everything last longer, and this is the way I'm doing it."
Yeah.
It's like, okay, no sweat.
Yep.
So one last thing real quick. Kevin, I will be in your neighborhood on Friday around 10:30. I'm going to load out down there out of Bear Mountain.
Oh, well, shoot. You're right. Then I can see Bear Mountain from here, and you're a quarter of a mile from the warehouse. So pull down to the warehouse park, and I'll come down and meet you.
Okay, sounds good. I will give you give him a shot when I get there.
Sounds good.
Pick up some brain oil while you're there. Might help us.
Yeah, I can use some.
That's right.
All right, you guys have a great day.
All right, thanks for the call. Good
Kevin,
stuff.
I've been on your website. I can't find that brain oil.
Just type in brain. Go when you're on the website. Are you on it now?
I do it. I just call Angie and tell her what I need.
Yeah, Angie will do it. But if you're on the site and you want to find it yourself, up in the top right corner, you see the little magnifying glass. Click on that. Type in the word brain.
The magnifying glass.
It's right next to the word login, top right corner.
Yeah, okay.
Now type in brain.
What's coming up? Sort by. Maybe I need to log in first.
No, you shouldn't have to log in. I'm not logged in. Search works without it.
Just go to the magnifying glass and type in brain oil. It comes up.
Yeah, brain octane oil.
Okay, now I got to come up.
There you go. And if you really, really want to help out your brain, right under it, you should also, if you typed in the word brain, you should also see ancestral grass-fed beef brain with liver. That's real brain we're eating.
You're kidding.
Nope. That's real brain.
Brain octane oil, $24.
Yeah, the brain octane oil that's really coconut oil. But what happens is coconut oil has 4 different fats in it, and they're based on the number of bonds. So there's a fat with 6 bonds, there's one with 8, there's one with 10, and there's one with 12 bonds. The lower the number of bonds in that fatty acid, the faster and easier our body can digest it. In fact, if it's short enough, we don't even have to digest it. It goes straight to our liver and gets converted to energy. That's why we use this. And it converts to ketones, which is really good for our brain. So we looked at, and I say we, the industry and practitioners looked at isolating what we call C6, the fat with the lowest number of bonds, and then using that so you'd get quick energy. That was the whole point behind this. The problem is, for some reason, C6 tastes so nasty, nobody can handle it. Nobody will swallow the stuff. It's so bad. Then if you move up to C8, C8 is totally neutral, has no taste whatsoever, and that's what brain octane oil is. It's the isolated C8 from coconut oil.
So how do you take this brain oil? Are you putting this in tea or coffee or anything?
I put 2 tablespoons in my coffee every. I put 2 tablespoons in my coffee every morning with the butter and all the other stuff. So that's excellent in coffee. You could put it in a protein drink if it works. If it, it's oily. So if you put it in and you can drink it, that's fine. You can make salad dressing with it. You can drizzle it on food. You can do all kinds of stuff with it. But I like it in my coffee every morning.
Kevin, a gearhead should never mind anything being oily.
That's true.
All right.
That's a good point.
Dirt under our fingernails is one thing. Grease and oil underneath, and that's a wonderful thing.
There you go.
Okay.
All right. Anybody?
And what's the other one? A cow brain? Brain what?
Yeah. So it's brain and liver. So they freeze dry the brain and the liver down to a powder, and then you just take it in a capsule. We used to eat brain. You're not allowed anymore. I have eaten calf's brain one time at a restaurant in Boston. It was really good, too. Really good. Brain used to be a pretty regular thing. Pork brain is still pretty common, and a lot of like Portuguese, Spanish, or a couple other cultures that it's really common to eat pork brain with scrambled eggs. That's like a really common dish.
Wow.
You know why? I could never figure out how did we end up with that combination. The pork brain, when you cook it, comes out almost identical to scrambled eggs. The texture of it's very similar.
Well, whatever you're doing, that picture of you and Lisa at your son's wedding last weekend, you two look really good. So,
well, thank you. Thank you.
Working really well for you. All right.
Anything anybody wants to close with? I got to wrap this up. I have the pit coming up in about 8 minutes. I'm talking about the new vaccine. We were just talking about the old vaccine. We have a new one coming out in a couple weeks.
You see the picture of Trump riding up on his Harley, coming up behind Joe Biden on his bicycle?
No, I haven't seen that one.
Biden looks over at Trump and just falls over.
I just happened to look down, and we have calls. I don't know what. You know what? We're going to take them real quick. In fact, I think somebody has a warning from me here. We're going to go to Minnesota. John, welcome.
Hi, Kevin. You're giving your recipe for the keto coffee. Just make sure Bruce doesn't start with 2 tablespoons of brain octane off the bat, because he could end up with disaster pants, and I know he doesn't want that.
Yeah, good point. I'm glad you called. I forgot to warn him about that. We have something called disaster pants, Bruce. That brain octane oil can be a little rough when you first start it for some people.
In other words, it cleans you out?
Yeah, stay close to a bathroom. And you might want to start with like a teaspoon or 2 the first couple times. Work your way up. I never had a problem with that.
I've taken MCT oils and coconut oils.
Oh, you'll be fine then. You'll be fine. Yeah.
Okay. But I don't do the coffee. I'd like to do the coffee, but when I don't drink coffee, the only time I had it was when I was at your house, Kevin, and I really liked it.
It was really good, wasn't it? That's a great way to start the day.
It was.
I know. We'll have to set you up with a little coffee bar.
Yeah, maybe we'll have to fly out there, you and I, and we'll drive on down and look at that Lucent car.
There you go.
And and toward the plant there. It's in Silicon Valley, and then come back and
there you go.
Fixed up with all the coffee.
That sounds like fun.
The only way I drink coffee now is I got to put chocolate caramel and whipped cream in it, and then I can drink it.
Or butter, coconut oil, and cinnamon. It's just even better, and it's just just a big old energy bomb. Let's grab one more call. We're going to go to Ohio, and Angie, don't screen anymore because I'm going to have to wrap this up and roll into the pit. But we're going to talk to Doug in Ohio first. Doug, welcome.
Good afternoon, Kevin. I've got a quick question for Bruce and a quick comment. I'm one of the testers for the fuel improver, and I have seen so far a 6/100ths of a mile per gallon increase. While that doesn't sound like a whole lot, when you're starting with a baseline of 8.6, that is significant.
I accept that's just a rounding error in fuel mileage, no matter how much. I mean, even if we're getting 14 miles to the gallon, an increase that small is a rounding error. We can't. And that's why we need multiple trucks.
I've also seen other benefits of the fuel mileage improver. I do notice that my throttle response does feel crisper, and my regens, and I'm also using the max mileage. My regens have gone from one rolling regen approximately every 5,000 miles to one rolling regen approximately every 10 to 12,000 miles with much shorter duration.
You know, I have heard that numerous times, that it's less regens. Everyone notices the throttle response, and some people are seeing mileage gain, some are seeing minimal, but they're liking it for the response, the smoothness, and the less regens.
And that being said, has Dr. Jane brewed up another batch yet? Because I need to order more.
We're actually working on refining what we already have. Britt and Jane are working on that. So as soon as she gets back, I have her calling on some clients in Hawaii right now. And as soon as she gets back, we'll get back on that.
All righty. Well, I've still got a pint left at the house and a pint in the truck. So I should be good for another 2 weeks.
Okay.
So in about a week and a half or so, I'll give you a call.
In fact, I'll call Britt right after the show here and tell him to make that top priority.
All right. Sounds like a plan. We've got to wrap this up now. I've got just a couple minutes to jump into the next show, so stay tuned for that. We'll be back in just a couple minutes, and we'll be back tomorrow for Destination Health. I don't have a lot for the pit today. I think Stanford's joining me. I think John wasn't able to make it, so it'll probably either be a short show today or it will be about your calls. So line them up. If you want to talk about politics, now is your chance. Thanks to the team from Pittsburgh Power. We'll do it again next week. Be safe, be profitable, be fit and healthy. Always do the hard work and master the journey.